Hello, APCS. Hope you're doing well this week. I want to give you some feedback on your random string chooser for your response question number 1 from 2016, the practice of it. A couple general things to start with. Number 1, it is okay to handwrite these questions. It's true. It is also okay to type them. Either way is fine. And we're going to get more clarity next week on exactly what the interface will look like. But if you handwrite, you have to take pictures. If you type, you have to copy and paste into their answer or possibly upload a file. That one's not totally clear. If you take pictures, take better pictures, please. I mean, these are pictures that you all sent. Number 1 is totally blurry, and I know the person that did this actually said, "I'm sorry, my camera is not working very well." That's something that you'll need to take care of before May. And then there were several people who were standing over their picture and holding their camera in the light, and it's just not so good. My guess is if that you get a picture and it's not legible, they will actually make you take the exam the second time during the retake time if they can't read your pieces. Also, have your reference pages with you all the time. There were quite a few people that had avoidable errors in their syntax of array lists and all that. So always have your reference pages, even while you're doing this. Practice the way you're going to take the exam. Put all your pieces out. I started putting together a cheat sheet, and it's available for you all to edit. Use those. All right, go to the next page, please. All right, how you approach these questions too, just general how you're looking at these AP questions as we're doing it. Number 1, you obviously have access to the rubrics and canonical solutions. I know that, you know that, we all know that. That's the whole point. You want to be able to see how you're doing. So yes, use those. Yes, learn from them. Yes, this is good, but only do it after you've done the work yourself, just to be sure. Make sure you do all the work yourself. I want to shout out to a couple of you who wrote your solutions and then added corrections in another color or otherwise wrote notes about them. Shouting out particularly to Carolyn and Maxine. You all did nice work there. Because what I want to see is what you did wrong, and then that you understand how to make it right. Does that make sense? I don't want to see you did the perfect one, because you're not going to do the perfect one every time. Get rusty, get raggedy, get in the weeds, but then get it right the second time. But I want to see both the first time and the second time. Good. Now let's look at this specific question. You were to talk about a random string chooser, which took a whole list of strings. It took an array of strings, and then it would choose random items from that list without repetition. So there you go. It would take wheels on the bus and choose 4 random strings. In this case, it was asked to choose 6 random strings, and so it would do bus the wheels on as one possible answer, and then none, because there were only 4 words in there. The structure, you need to create a constructor, and you need to create a getNext method. That's all good. What are they testing? So what could you expect them to be looking for? Number 1, can you write a constructor that takes an array as a parameter? That's all good. Can you then, fill that constructor? Can you manipulate that array to fill the constructor, to fill your data the way that you want to? Can you generate an appropriate random number? In this case, you'd use math.random, multiply it by the length of the list that you're currently working with, and come up with that. And can you check whether there are items in a list and then return an appropriate response? Check whether the size is 0, basically. Lots of different possible implementations of this. One is you could have an array, and every time you remove an item from an array, make a new copy of the array that has 1 fewer item in it. That works. That's doable. I wrote that one just to see that I could. It's doable, and you can look up some solutions and post those. Number 2, you could keep a parallel array, a second array of Boolean values that tells whether a particular string has been used or is available. Number 3 is the easiest method, and I'm glad that it was the one that many of you chose, was to copy the strings to an array list and then use the array list methods to manage it. Just a quick little list of the array list methods, difference between arrays and array lists. Array lists use size, but you can put information in with add. The size is variable. The size tells you this. You use add. You use get to find an item in the list. You don't use the square brackets. You use get. You use toString, you can use index of, you can use add a particular item, and you can use remove, which are all very handy there. Good. Double check array lists. So the particular scoring rubric on this one. Did you use the correct class constructor and method headers? That's all good. Did you declare your instance variable as private? Did you initialize that instance variable? In this case, what that means is, does your constructor take that array of strings and then put it in your instance variable? In your case, you all did an array list. So did it take the strings from that array and put them in the array list? And then the 4 points for how did get next work. Did you get a random number in the proper range, including a correct cast to an integer? Did you choose a string from the instance variable using that random number? Did you update the state appropriately? So there's a couple, depending on your implementation, there were different ways to do that. And then did you return the chosen string or none? Here's an example from one of you. All is pretty good. Do you do all of those things in your string? In your constructor, do you get this information? The headers are good. It's private. It's all good. When you initialize it, however, an array list is an object, so you do need open close parentheses because you're creating an object. You're calling the constructor for the array list, so you do need that. The for loop that walks through it, this is a standard for loop. A couple of you did a for each loop. That's all lovely. It's all good, but you're adding word array. It's all nice. This last statement, the public string.getNext. So this would have probably lost -1 point on there, but other than that, this is all in good shape. The way that you wrote get next, basically you want to check is the size 0, and then either return none. Is the size 0? If it's not, you return none. If it is, you return the item. You remove an item and return it. So lots of different ways to do it. The canonical solution has this one, and a lot of you used this one, even though I'm not positive that you would have chosen this one based on what you did in class before. It's all on one line. Remove words.remove. What are you going to remove? You're going to remove an integer number, an integer at math.random times word.size. So you're going to find a random number, an appropriate random number, remove that item, and then you've got words, and you're going to take that removed item and return it. So you remember that the remove method does return the item that it removed, so you're using that fact. This is the way I think a lot of you would have written it in the past. Everybody backed off of this one, but some of you went in between. So n is your random number. Your answer is words.getN. Then remove it, then return the answer. So that's doing in 4 lines what this first one did in 1 line, but each of those 4 lines is a very simple line. You can understand exactly what's going on. So you can do that. The last option sort of combines them. It gets a random number, and then it returns words.removeN. So several of you did write that version, which I think is the best of both worlds. It's clear but also pretty efficient. So take care. Part B is about extending a class, making a random letter chooser, which is a kind of random string chooser, but does all of those pieces. This is not a topic that is on the 2020 exam. This is some work that we would have done in April if we were seeing each other live. The things to notice, this get single letters returns an array of single letters. Implementation not shown. All of these details. Implementation not shown. They're not asking you to write this. A couple people tried to write that. No, implementation not shown. You don't need to write that. They might have you, they will have you on the second question. They will give you a couple of tools, a couple of things. They'll say, here's a class, and here are a couple methods of that class, and it will say implementation not shown. You need to be able to use those methods, even though you don't need to write them, and you don't need to know how they're specifically written. You just need to know how to use them. So in this case, you need to know that that method will take a string and return an array of the single letters, an array of strings, each string being a single letter there. And then the way you actually called it, you called the super constructor. We're not so worried about this one. This is not going to be on this exam, but basically you're calling, if you take a string, you take the string and you get single letters, so that's an array of strings, and then you call the constructor of the random string chooser class, the super class, the parent class. So this is now an array of individual letters. Call the constructor. Life is good. Okay. Keep working. I will see you Thursday. It's all happy. Have a lovely day. Wow. Where did my off button go?